Good afternoon. Welcome to the last session of Big Sound 2014. My name's Michael Crutcher. I'm the president of QMusic. Is that John's voice I hear? I can't see you out there, but I can hear you. Great to see everyone here for the last afternoon. I can't make you out very well, but it's been a great few days. I think you'll agree, and a great couple of nights as well. I'm sure you've enjoyed it. If you're from Brisbane, if you've come from interstate or come from overseas, it's been great to have you here, and we look forward to having you here again next year for Big Sound 2015. Now, I just want to start by saying we do also have a prize on offer right now. If you look under your seat, you will see the chance to win 2 tickets to the Painted Ladies who revisit the Loner. So it's a project by local Indigenous artists, Luke Peacock and the Medics. They've revisited the first Black Protest album by Vic Sims, and they're playing here at the Judith Wright Centre next week. So under your seat or a seat near you, if there's no one in it, could be 2 tickets to what will be a fantastic show. And if you don't get the tickets, you can go and buy them from the box office as well. It's been a lot of work gone into this, and it sounds like a great project as well. Also, you get the chance outside. Keep in mind there's 3 excellent books out there for sale if you want something to read in the next couple of weeks and you haven't. Of course, Andrew Stafford's Pig City, which everyone knows, Andrew McMillan's Talking Smack, and Justin Heazlewood's Funemployed. So those books are just out as you leave this door. You can see those books there, and they've got great reviews and plenty of great stories. So we've come to the end of Big Sound 2014. Just like to again thank our partners who've helped make this possible. Again, Arts Queensland, who recognise the importance of Big Sound and are our major supporters. Oztix and Virgin Australia, who again have been on board this year, and we really appreciate their partnership. And this year, new to Big Sound, JBL, RDO, Carlton United Breweries and Levi's. I'd like to thank them very much for their support this year. And some of that's been made possible by Johanna and Daniel from The Boss, who have worked with QMusic this year to ensure that our partnerships have been stronger than they've ever been. So Johanna and Daniel, thank you very much. We very much value the work that you did with us. To the staff from the Judith Wright Centre, who again have been fantastic hosts for the last 3 days, thank you very much to those staff. To the 14 venues who hosted Big Sound Live the last 2 nights. We really appreciate our partnerships with those venues, so thank you very much to those 14 venues. Our contractors and volunteers who've played another great role in what we've done this year. We really value what those contractors and volunteers do for Big Sound. To Nick O'Byrne, who, can you please give Nick a round of applause as Executive Programmer? We're really excited by what Nick could bring to Big Sound as Executive Program, and I'm sure you'll agree, not just this conference the last 3 days, but the quality of the acts the last 2 nights, a testament to Nick, what he's done for this, the energy he brings, and the manner in which he does it. He's a pleasure to work with. We really value having Nick on board, so thank you very much to Nick O'Byrne. And to the fantastic staff at QMusic. I think I say this every time I'm here, but I've just never really seen an office that works like the QMusic office does. It is quite remarkable to see the work that comes out of that office for the size of it. To QMusic, thank you. Please thank them. To Jolanda, Roxy, Dan, Sue, Sonal, Stacey, Paul, Eddie, Heather, Kylie, Fiona, Jemima and EK. Their work is outstanding. And also to Denise Foley, who, Denise is a dynamo. And I mentioned here on Wednesday morning that this is Denise's last year as Executive Officer at QMusic. She's had 7 enormous years. She's looking for something a little bit different. We're pretty hopeful we'll keep Denise on in some capacity at QMusic, because we'd hate to lose Denise Foley, because as you know so well, Denise Foley is the heartbeat of much that goes on within QMusic and music around here. So I think Denise is ready for a quick getaway tomorrow to a holiday, but if you see Denise around, we can't thank her enough for what she does. Her job as Executive Officer will be advertised on Monday. And it's a role that brings with it a lot of rewards, a lot of hard work, but I think, as you know, working in this industry, a lot of satisfaction and a lot of great people. So that happens from Monday. So to the QMusic staff, thank you so much. And now our last panel today. This is, I think, going to be really good fun. It's a panel with, as you can see behind me, some great names. Justin Heazlewood will be moderator, and I'll ask Justin to come up here now and to introduce the panel. Thank you.
Thanks so much. G'day there, and congratulations on getting to the end of BIGSOUND 2014. And I hope you've all come, some way towards realising your dreams, even if they are anxiety dreams about having weird conversations with hipster frenemies who are psyching you out. Or is that just me having a Bloody Mary earlier today? Trying to argue about the Battle of the Bloodies. It was my Bloody Valentine versus Kevin Bloody Wilson. Who's the most seminal? G'day. Well, all the humour, that's the humour part of the segment over with. Try an M&M for God's sake. I'm the internet's Justin Heazlewood, musician/comedian/wrists. I am the second only to Richard Kingsmill as the most powerful man in the Australian music industry. It has been said I can make or break careers. God knows I've broken my own. Which brings me to my book, Funemployed, which I wrote a couple of years ago. It's, self-help / memoir. It's sort of been described as like getting a hug and like getting a punch in the face. So it's just like any Saturday night out in the valley. But here we are to discuss these themes live. We're going to crack the mantle of the press releases and the hype and the wearing sunglasses inside, the social media politeness. We're going to dip our warm, freshly washed spoon into the sweet, messy, gooey artistes that exist behind the veneer. Sort of like an intellectual Cadbury cream egg, if you will, that hopefully doesn't make you feel depressed or sick afterwards. It's going to be cool. I like to think of the Australian art scene as like a giant arena with, the artists sort of battling over the precious few scraps in the middle while the industry and audience sort of watch them from a distance for their own twisted entertainment, which is also the exact plot of The Hunger Games. Without further ado, I'll introduce our first panellist in a Tony Barber Fame Games sort of style. If anyone wants to buzz in, I've got some publishing deals with Mushroom to give away. Who am I? I'm an electronic musician and host of Double J's Something More. I recently released my new EP, Time Shield. Everyone's too hungover. I am Tim Shiel. I'm a musician, a star musician who today releases my new album, There. I have one of the cleanest, most user-friendly websites that I've ever seen. I get website envy. It's so well designed. I am Megan Washington. And happy album release day.
Thank you.
Better out than in.
Yeah.
Very cool. I am an AMP Prize-nominated musician from Melbourne and the founder of Listen, a crowdsourced documentation of women in music.
Yes.
I am Evelyn Morris. Correct. I'm a singer-songwriter who had 5 top 10 singles during the 60s and 70s. This year I released my most successful album, Van Diemen's Land. I am Russell Morris. Thank you so much for taking part. I like to start with you, Evelyn. You've got a great story about your relationship with self-promotion, and you had your first incident of perhaps tall poppy syndrome back in primary school, I believe.
Oh, yes. Did I tell you this story then? The one about being on
Hopefully,
Fox
well, that
FM?
would be a very creepy
prediction.
I have interviewed Evelyn before. I'm not just some sort of gaunt psychic.
There are a few incidents of extreme embarrassment in my childhood, so I'm just sifting through them. But I think that it was the one where I won a radio contest. Well, I didn't win it. I lost it. I called up Fox FM to do a quiz, and I failed so dismally that they felt sorry for me, and they said, well, you can have a Kylie Minogue CD anyway. And I was like, well, I don't like Kylie Minogue, and I don't have a CD player because my parents hadn't upgraded yet. And so they sent me this CD player, and then I went to school And I told everybody, you know, this thing happened to me, and I played them the tape, and I got this CD player because these people called in and donated one to me, and it was amazing. And everyone at school was just like, you are so lame. You suck. And that was pretty much it.
So does that perhaps plant the seed that one should mute one's own achievements? How's that permeated through your career as an independent musician?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I feel like anyone who was a nerd at primary school kind of learned really early on that you shouldn't speak up too much. Because if you say smart things or whatever, people think you're too big for your boots.
I feel like this has sort of bled its way into the artist relationship with their own career, which ends up in a lot of sort of weird apologising.
Yeah.
Which is just this hilarious paradox. Any other panellists have this experience?
Which experience in particular?
Yeah, that's what I was waiting for.
An artist's relationship with their career is so complex.
How do you feel about self-promotion, Tim?
Yeah, it's difficult. I guess I've always promoted myself. Like, I think a few of us would be in the same position. Russell's maybe in a similar position now. It is tricky when you're doing self-promotion because you don't want to seem like a douche, I guess, and it's really easy to seem like a bit of a douchebag if you're hitting people up, trying to tell people how great you are, when you sometimes don't even really believe it yourself, but you know that you sort of feel like you're supposed to put that out there to the world. You know, you're meant to present yourself as being some incredible artist, but you don't often believe it yourself, which is, I've often found that hard. I've often wished I had someone else who could kind of come in and go, Tim Shiel is the greatest. He's actually the most amazing. Even though I don't really believe it, it might, sort of help just to have that buffer,
When I was doing meetings yesterday with people out at those tables, I, halfway through, grabbed my friend Paris and was like, can you just pretend to be my manager?
Yeah.
Like, just come and sit with me and tell this person that I'm awesome, because I don't know how to do it. Like, just yesterday.
I wonder, though, maybe whether there's a different relationship between self-promotion on things like social media and self-promotion in that situation, which is just one-on-one, face-to-face with somebody else. Because it's almost psychotic if someone sits in front of you, anybody in any industry, and says, I am the greatest thing at what I do ever.
Yeah.
Like, that's not... No one was going to...
Psychotic or American?
Well,
Yeah, exactly.
same.
Sort of.
Sorry to all the Americans, we love you.
Yeah.
Soz.
Much respect to our mother country.
But I have to self-promote on, social media all the time, and I kind of think of it as a fun sort of game of finding interesting sort of left-fieldy, maybe tinily self-depreciating, but maybe funny ways to kind of mention albums out, now I need wine, or, something like that, to kind of just to soften the blow of that sort of direct, hard sell. And yeah, that's what I think.
With myself, I've been sort of bullied into it. Being an old dog, I vacillate between incredible insecurity as an artist and then incredible confidence, thinking that you can. And so I'm not very good at self-promotion, so I've always had a manager. And I've got a Facebook, but I don't run it because I just don't do it. I've got the bass player in the band who runs it. And my Twitter account, they forced me to do a Twitter account, which I'm not really good at.
Your
You've been
label or-
printing your
The
tweets
record
out.
label, yes. So they said, you've got to do it. This is really, really important. You've got to do all this stuff. I said, but the record's selling. Doesn't matter. You've still got to do it. Why? So I'm not so sure. I think it does help, especially if you're totally an independent artist. You've got to be. But if you've got a record company working for you, and I've never had the courage to walk in and thump the desk and tell them that even after having hit records, because I always, this is a terrible confession, I always figured someone's going to find out I'm a fake. I always have that, someone's going to say, is that really all you've got to offer? So you always sort of, as an artist, you've got this insecurity that you carry all the time with you. And I guess I don't know about you three guys,
Definitely,
but it's a horrible, because at school, I set myself up for it early. I started training very early because, when they have those, they say, all right, everybody stand over there. All right, we'll take Johnny. All right, I'll take Bob. and I was always the last one standing there to be picked on a team. And so you always felt like...
Where are they now, though? That's what I want to know.
And my parents were like those out of Meet the Fockers, you know, when they come round and they show them all the menial, sort of the dreadful awards that he's won, which meant nothing, running fourth in the egg and spoon race. That's how my parents were. So I always felt that I felt confident even in failure. So I never feared it. So consequently, I went for a shot for the stars, you know.
I think it's how the Ramones started a egg and spoon race where they were all tied together and they came fourth.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting paradox, isn't it, in which your insecurities in life often inspire you to become an artist, to try and heal this great rift within, and then you're in a situation where you're in front of Facebook with your personal page trying to request people to like you, for God's sake. And the actual mechanisms of a career in the arts then destabilise you even further, which probably make you write really great songs because you're so depressed, which you then have to promote, which... people wonder why we're a little bit on edge. So that's all well and good. It's a paradox, wrapped in an enigma, wrapped in a blanket. This is how an artist spends their time, you know, admin, performing, day job, thinking, networking, not working, bitching, creating, worrying, thinking, maths, not really in there. And have a pie for lunch, I guess, and...
You forgot being hungover.
Yeah.
I feel like that should be a really big...
Well, that's just all of the graph is being hungover, right?
Obviously a little bit hungover when trying to draw around the...
Performing.
The can of International Roast. Evelyn,
Yep.
Most artists in Australia have a day job most of their careers. You know, the beginning, sure, middle, oh yeah, I guess, and end. What? Come on! What does it do for your sense of identity?
Well, for me, it's helped keep me grounded because I've done lots of different jobs, but one of the main ones that I've kept doing is bartending. And all the bars I've ever worked at are really small bars, and I've got to know all the customers, and I get to just have really great conversations, and it's kind of my social life. So I think for me, it's always given me structure and like a touchstone, a sense of reality. I teach music as well to little kids, and that's been really good for me. And what else am I doing at the moment? Reception at an osteo clinic, and yeah, there's heaps of things. But I don't know, it doesn't make me feel less of an artist, if that's what you mean. Like, sometimes it does. Sometimes you're like, oh, I'm just working at a bar, and when am I going to be a real, you know, proper artist? But I don't know, you also just know that you're supporting your craft and that's a good thing.
Has it taken a while to strike a good work-life balance when you essentially have 3 jobs, the small business of your arts, the creating bit,
yeah,
the day
now
job?
I'm running this not-for-profit thing as well, like on top of everything else. So it is quite hard to maintain a good sleep schedule and not spend too much time on your computer or your phone. But I don't know. I think as long as you find some sort of balance that within yourself, you know, that feels like you're happy with how much you're working, and you're happy with how much you're creating, and you're happy with how much you're contributing to a conversation with the public, and you know, that for me it's a balance that's about just how you feel, as opposed to like hours. You know, I don't feel like that at any point I expect to be working less, is what I mean. I will always work hard, I think.
Megan, do you feel like you're creatively on call 24 hours?
Well, it's interesting what Evelyn just said about having a job doesn't make her feel any less of an artist, because I don't have a job except for music, but it doesn't make me feel like any more of an artist either. And I think, you know, it's interesting that you said, you know, I haven't, you know, one day you might wake up and go, I don't have to work anymore, I've made it. But I don't think, I haven't had a job for like 6 years except for being a musician, and I mean, I go through an absolute roller coaster of trying to ascertain whether what I'm doing is worthwhile, and when you haven't actually done anything for a month, that wreaks havoc on your psyche and your sense of work ethic. And I don't think that it actually matters. Like, it sounds like you have a much better creative process, much healthier one than I do. And I wonder whether if I had something else in my life to kind of
Support it.
or make structure or.
I've always found the prospect of being full-time extremely terrifying, because it's like, what if one day you wake up and you just can't write a song?
Yeah.
And like,
Yep.
that to
Yep.
me is a very brave thing to be doing. Like, I couldn't. I always need to have some buffer, like.
And I think that's why, maybe, super artists, people that are internationally famous, always have these philanthropic side projects, like they, help people in Africa, or they promote solving homelessness, or they're really into veganism, or whatever it is. You kind of have to just juxtapose the purely selfish existence of your artistic life with something worthwhile. For me, I just go to the gym.
I think Ben Lee contributes to a cat home. Well, that's a home for cat power, just to chill out after tours. Tim or Russell, how much does having a routine or a structure help? Can you say 9 to 12, I'm going to work on some songs and then I'm going to have a break?
Yeah.
I've tried. I know people who do write with a structure like that. I can sit down and sit there for 2 hours from 9 till 12 or something and do nothing.
Well, there's thinking time, which, to the outside world looks like nothing, but it's an essential part of creating.
Yeah, I know. I often get it from the wife. Would you mind doing out in the backyard? And I'll say, but I was working, I was playing my guitar, and she said, I just thought you were fiddling about. But that's what it seems like most of the time. It seems like you're fiddling about, and it's just exploring, and every now and then a light bulb will flash and something will happen, but unfortunately that light bulb doesn't flash all the time. It's the neurons aren't connecting and things. So I can't do it as a structured thing. I just do it when I feel like picking up the guitar and working. But I do it in lots. I'll write, and I'll write an album, and then I don't write at all. I don't even think about it. I just go and do other stuff and try and amuse myself to clear the slate. I need the slate completely blank again. Otherwise, it becomes a bit of everything gets confused. But as for working day jobs, after the huge 60s success and 70s, I couldn't get arrested for years. I would probably end up with like 15 shows a year, and that wasn't enough to survive. So I was writing TV jingles and doing anything I could, selling insurance. And as it didn't make me feel any less of an artist, I still felt that there was a goal that I was trying to achieve. And it's like going to me, if success is, the music business is an uneven playing field. Who knows what success is, and you never know when it's going to come. Particularly like with myself, I didn't expect the latest stuff to happen the way it did. It's almost like you go to a big, every day you go to this huge lake with thousands of people around it with an empty cup, and you try and get to the front to get a drink, and every day, most of the time, you're sent home. Then one day, all of a sudden, you're shuffling there and you're standing there at the front and someone fills your cup up. It's almost like that, and you have to be that dedicated in a way, and it's a hard one to keep your nose to the grindstone and not sort of lose heart.
Tim, in a country where we value most things by money and how much money you make, how does an artist in Australia forge a sense of, identity and pride?
Well,
Yeah, you go, Tim.
well, I think you don't want to use money as your marker for identity or pride if you're an artist, because it's just not a reality for most artists. I think it's not something I think about. I mean, in terms of, I don't know, money as an end goal as a musician, is that sort of what you're asking? Or?
I suppose so, when you tell people what you do at barbecues and whatnot, and
Yeah.
the attitudes that you get back sometimes.
Yeah, I always struggle with that actually when people ask me what I do, because I actually juggle so many different things, because I am trying to have like a sustainable career as an artist at the moment, and that means that I'm focusing on 3 or 4 different projects all at the one time, hoping that one of them turns into something more. So I find it really difficult to kind of express exactly what it is that I'm doing at any particular time.
Have you ever reached a burnout point from just overworking and over-juggling?
I have, actually, yeah. I think it was a couple of days ago here at BIGSOUND when I arrived. I don't know.
We've come to the right place to recover, and it's Byron Bay Yoga Resort or BIGSOUND.
Yeah, anyone that had the pleasure of my company on Wednesday will know that I spent all of Wednesday pretty much just exasperated and unsure of my place and what I was even doing here, or should I even be making music.
I woke up feeling like that today a little bit.
Yeah, I've been on this roller coaster ride for the last couple of days, just trying to figure out, where I'm at, how enthusiastic I really am about being an artist and being involved in music. And it's been a pretty interesting place to kind of think through some of that stuff. I've found that, this might probably says more about me than anything else, but I've found last couple of days that my mood has just reflected the last person I've spoken to. When I speak to someone who's feeling very negative about where everything is at, or where their own career is at, or where the music industry is at, I kind of have come away from that and just wanted to crawl up under a table. And but then I've met so many people over the last couple of days who still have that sort of enthusiasm and passion and drive and kind of genuine love of music, and I guess that has kept me going. I don't know where I've ended up today. I guess we'll probably find out by the end of the panel.
Come around to your place Saturday night, we'll play emotional charades. Oh, depressed? No. Downcast? No. Sullen? Yes. How important is failure and rejection to a career as an artist?
How important is it?
Yeah.
Well, I think you have to understand that it's always possible, and so you have to sort of build up a resilience to it. It's always happening. Like, there's always in some way a failure about to occur or occurring. I think. I know it sounds really depressing, but for me, that's something that makes me feel resilient. It makes me feel more capable of expressing myself if I'm aware that the potential for failure is always there.
But do you see it perhaps if failure was rebranded as experiment, and we're
Yeah,
closer to
that's what I mean.
scientists, where we're just constantly experimenting?
That's kind of what I mean. That's how I always have. I didn't go about that sort of in my early 20s. In my early 20s, I was very eager to please. But as I've gotten older, it's more about just, having fun with this experiment with music and this experiment with my lifestyle and how I express myself. And sometimes you totally balls it up. Sometimes you'd make a dick out of yourself on stage. That's just part of it. You have to be able to be okay with that. So I think it's a good thing to be aware and understand that failure is constantly possible. Would you agree?
Well, I wonder if that's got a lot to do with how you define failure itself. There's musical failure, which is I tried to do this thing, it didn't work. But most of the time, that's an experiment that you conduct with an audience of yourself, and so it didn't work. And then there's, I guess, gig failure, which is the gig wasn't so great, but you always learn from those experiences. And every artist in the world has had a shitty show, so that's okay as well. Then there's album failure, which how do you define that? There are so many critically acclaimed albums that never sold any, and then there are all these shit albums that do really well,
But that's a difficult one, because I feel like my last record I was really happy with at the time, and then you put it out and it gets whatever response.
Well, maybe that was a marketing failure. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
totally.
all
But,
these different.
but then you look back on it and your perspective on it changes as well, and whether or not people have accepted it or not, you feel like, oh, I actually don't like that anymore, and your understanding of that failure changes over time as well.
Yeah.
I don't think any failure is ever concrete. It's always changing.
I think it's interesting that, for most kind of artists, there is a chart. And it's quite amazing. It's sort of the only, music is one of the only art forms where there's a chart, a rank, a podium of who's one, who's number two, And I'm it's very topical for me at the moment, because my record's out today and it's number 2 on iTunes, and the Madden Brothers are at number 1, and it's really are we going to get there? And, I should be happy with I should be happy with fucking being alive and not living in Gaza, you know what I mean? So it's fine, but it's really interesting that there's this inbuilt kind of competition that's really kind of insane.
It is, yeah.
And so now I have to decide whether, it's art or chart that defines my success, and it's a very unique industry in that regard, I think.
I was number 2 in Mess and Noise's Coldest 100.
Those fires are still being stoked, even with like the Voice and X Factor, who's first, who's second.
Yeah.
And it is a big competition, a great leveler to me. One of my great friends who died recently, Jim Keys, was a very funny man, very intelligent man. And I remember him saying to me about 3 years ago, he said, "Are you going to do a new album?" I said, "No." He said, "Why?" I said, "Why would I bother?" I said, I've had 4 albums and they've all sunk without a trace. No one plays them, no one listens to them, no one buys them, and I spend money creating them. And he said, "But that's what you do." He said, "If you were a master craftsman that made like wonderful desks or wonderful cabinets," he'd said, "you'd make another one and you'd put it in a storeroom or you'd put it in a shop. Doesn't matter. That's what you do. You have to do it. It's your body of work." So consequently, that's our lot in life. We just have to keep doing that. Now, we've chosen that unless we choose another path. And success is a funny thing. Look at poor old Vincent van Gogh. Sold 2 paintings in his lifetime, both to his brother. Now, what are they selling for? So success is a funny thing. It's just a very veiled curtain, and you never know when it's going to be lifted, and you can't expect it. You've got to do what you love.
The other thing that, what you were saying before, Tim, about, feeling malleable and kind of taking on the mood of whoever's around you, I think that success and failure does that as well.
Yeah.
And if you're around people who nobody knows about, but they make great music, you sort of feel good because you're doing better than they are. But then if you're around like your buddies who play in Tame Impala or whatever, you're like, "Oh man, I'm totally a failure." It's all relative to the moment, who you're standing next to, or what chart you're thinking about.
I think there's a lot to be said. Having interviewed a lot of artists for this book, themes of losing one's compass come up a lot. And when I think of my own career, sort of having this massive success of Northcote, and then just suddenly more, your fame grows at that point, and seemed success. It's like so many more people get involved, whether it's voices on the internet or publicists or booking agents or friends. Everyone's got an opinion on what you should do next. Everyone's kind of invested in this fun carnival ride, which is starting to really take off. And I feel like when you just go on autopilot with that and just like, "Yeah, man, this is kind of cool. This is like the Johnny Cash biopic bit, I'm like 2 scenes away from passing out in Las Vegas. I'm just going to go with it." You end up in a place where you're like, "Hang on, like it's 11 p.m. and I'm in Hobart and everyone's drunk and not listening to me. I don't even want to be here. Like I just want to be at home chilling out." But someone said, "You got to do this tour, mofo."
Yeah.
That sort of thing. How destabilizing is success in that way?
Yeah, it's like you have to be as wary of success as you are of failure, really, like of its impact on you. I mean, you said that, as you were saying, like the success of Northcote was a big success for you, right? So success can mean all sorts of different things. Like minor wins can feel like a big success, and it's important to not carry that with you. So exactly the same as me reacting to the last person that I spoke to. I often have to stop myself from having my mood be directly associated with what's just happened with my music or my career. If I've had a minor win, then maybe that makes me feel good, or if I've had a rejection or something, then maybe that makes me feel bad. And it's almost like you sort of, in some ways, need to desensitize yourself from both things, and just it's really important to kind of separate your well-being from what's happening to you as an artist, I think.
I would say that the bar moving, like in terms of reception, the bar moving in any direction is always a shock and something that you have to get used to. And the more time you spend in the industry, and the more you get used to the bar moving up and down, up and down, up and down, the less you care about it, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like when you had Northgate, the bar moved, and that became your new normal, you know, was that. And that's always a very disorienting sort of thing. And then when the bar moves maybe up higher, it's, you know, or back down, like it's, you know, it's a weird sort of thing, and you have to sort of just get used to that seasickness, I think. And once you get your sea legs, I think it becomes a lot easier to deal with minor wins, minor losses, mate. You know, just you kind of just don't care, really. I think, I imagine, I hope. I hope. I don't feel that yet, but I hope that. Did that make any fucking sense?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
That's good.
Sorry.
I like that you
Less metaphor, Meg.
Yeah.
No, that was good.
Is that a metaphor in your pocket, or are you just pleased to simile? Hey, I'm anyone's.
That wasn't. You knew that already.
A little equation here for you. Not much minus expenses equals drinking problem.
So true.
Art maths. We're just going to cut to Gareth Liddard from the Drones. If we could just play this, please.
It's hard to explain. It's a weird thing. Anyway, the only way I could describe it is like, you like surfing. Cool. Now you have to surf for 18 hours a day for 4 months without a day off. And if you get sick, it doesn't matter. You have to be hospitalised to get a day off. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like we took one of our management people on the last tour we did, and it wasn't a long tour. And when we finished, we were having a drink, like, yay. And, you know, celebrating the end. And we said, so, you know, how many times did you cry? She was like, lost count. It's just so fucking punishing. It's that song, the Bon Scott song, the Long Way to the Top. I listen to that song and I just tick every line. All that shit has happened.
Thank you, Gareth. Gareth's talking about touring as the Drones, and I interviewed him for part of the book, and he mentioned a meltdown that he had. I think he ended up in a German hospital where no one spoke English, with just a complete body shutdown coming out both ends, and yeah, it was like one of the most intense stories I've ever heard. And this theme of long-haul touring, which is, you know, quite the norm once you reach a certain level in music, and just the repetition, the boredom, the not getting a good night's sleep, and then eventually the turning to alcohol as a general, getting you through the day, and then that just evolving into an enabling culture of alcoholism. And I just wanted to throw that over to the panel. What your experiences of this have been.
That cheerful topic.
He's looking at me. I have no sympathy for him at all. I worked as a brickies labourer when I was younger, and that was the hardest job I've ever done. That was horrifying. I find the music business quite pleasant. If you're going to self-inflict yourself, so be it. That's your choice. Sure, I drink, I'll go out and party and things like that, but I don't do it to excess. I don't find being on the road hard. I find it enjoyable. You get on a plane, you travel somewhere, maybe you have to drive 4 hours or something, but gee, so what? So you get to a motel, you sleep, you get up in the morning, go out for breakfast, come back, someone's made your room, which is great, and then you go and do a gig, which is like you're on stage for 2 hours at the most. You may have a sound check. I have no sympathy for people that say that the music business is really hard work. It may be boring at times because you have to spend a lot of time sitting around. The hardest work in the music business is self-motivation, to make yourself right and come up with new ideas and try and reinvent yourself in a way. That's probably the hardest thing, and the hardest thing is facing rejection, which every one of us have gotten along the time. But I don't think it's hard work at all. I think it's mentally draining, but hard physically, no.
I think he was talking about it maybe being emotionally draining though. Like I think that there's been a couple of tours I've been on around America where I wasn't doing my own music, I was playing in someone else's band, and one through Europe as well, and they were like 26, 27 shows in a row, like no breaks. And people that I didn't necessarily know that well in the band, and you're in very confined spaces, and not everybody is 100% mentally well to begin with because we're musicians, and like we're, you know, they're just, the tensions grind up against each other and everybody ends up really unhappy, and so they just drink and don't talk. And you know, I think especially if you're doing that stuff when you're in your 20s and you actually don't really know who you are yet, and you don't know what it is to be a grown-up, and you're just like emulating people that you think were cool, and they all drank and they all took drugs. And I think lots of people get really lost on the road. I've seen it happen to a lot of friends, and I decided not to do that kind of touring after that experience, because I came back from it and was like, yep, no, I'm a bartender. There's so much booze around all the time, and you know, I don't know how to stop. So
Well, I might be just being my insensitive self here, but I sort of cruise along with all the craziness. I tend to embrace the craziness, and it doesn't faze me. I don't feel insecure, and all my band are quite happy, and we haven't stopped for 2 years. We've been on the road, 4 gigs a week, every week.
I feel like maybe as I got older that might be more possible, because you kind of get to know who you are and like what your boundaries are and stuff like that, and how to manage your mental health. But when you're really figuring that stuff out in your 20s, which is when a lot of people start touring when they're 20, 21, and they have no idea who they are, and they are thrown into this world that is actually not particularly, it's not about well-being at all. It's mostly about all the things that are bad for you. Yeah, and like maybe when you're older, like maybe now I could try doing it and do it in a better way, but back then it was very damaging for me.
But I did do it at 20.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, with people like Bon Scott. And
Did you have help? Did you have like tour
wonder-
managers and guitar techs? And
Sorry?
Did you have like a tour manager and a manager and people to
we-
buffer you from those passive
'Cause we
aggressive
were
had all those guys,
conversations?
We were all
and the
sleeping
tour
on
ma-
the
bar
floors
staff.
The
and
roadies
stuff.
were the worst. They were I don't know how they functioned. They deserved medals. They would stay up till everyone else had gone to bed, packing up, and they would get up earlier than everybody else. Drive
Speed.
The next. They
yeah.
were unbelievably people. Unbelievable.
But they get a
I
big
don't know how
cheer when they come out on stage and tune the guitars.
They were the ones that fell apart a little bit.
Yeah.
Because they were just lived so hard.
But if you're an independent musician trying to be the tour manager often and the organizer, and
Yeah, we didn't have any kind of administration. We were like, sort of doing it and sleeping on floors, and you know.
Well, that's not.
It's
different
like
experience.
I'm kind of coming from a different world, I guess. But yeah, and I think that's how plenty of people start out doing it.
I was just going to say, I wonder whether it might be about at what point, be it age or maturity or finance, commerce, luxury, you are able to choose to curate your own experience of touring. You know, I think that when you've reached a certain level, even if it's just you as a person, and some people I know have reached that point very young at 20, 21, where they just make decisions about their life and they just live that way, and everybody else goes out and gets ratchet and they go to the hotel room or the couch or the floor or whatever and just go to bed and read a book. And some people still define their experience by what others are doing. And then maybe you reach a point where your touring budget is larger and you're able to actually make a choice of what sort of culture you'd like to curate for your tour. And, you know, I think that I've been on, the worst tour that I ever did was 8 weeks in a van supporting orchestral manoeuvres in the dark through America in 2011, and it was so horrible because the band were all American. We didn't really get on. I didn't understand their sense of humour. They were just really intense and full on. Again with Americans, I'm so sorry. And orchestral manoeuvres in the dark were not a good fit for us. Their audience didn't really like my music. It was all about nostalgia and retrospect, why people were going to the shows. I don't evoke an era, my band, so they just had no access point for our music, and I spent 8 weeks just going, why am I doing this? Like, spending all this money to go around like, it was horrible. But that's because I put myself at the behest of them, and I didn't choose any of that experience. I let it be chosen for me, and I learned a huge lesson through that. I'll never do that again. And I think that it's about, I don't know, I wonder whether touring, the way that you tour, is more of a choice than a sort of prescription.
I think the only reason my tour experience was so horrible was because I didn't choose the people I was touring with, and they were just a-holes.
Yeah, do you have to kind of reach a certain level before you can, like you say, curate your own sort of
experience?
touring experience? You probably don't have that luxury.
I don't think that will. Yeah, I don't think they'll ever.
Well, Tim, you just toured with Gautier.
Yeah.
Just a casual world tour.
Yeah.
I'm not what's qualified. It like? Do you have personal masseuses and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, not in a terribly rock and roll way, but I mean, so I joined Gautier as my first ever band. It's the first band I've ever been in, age 31, right? And it was just before everything exploded with him, so I sort of got to go along on that roller coaster for a couple of years on the tour. And yeah, like once the success really hit in, and the production scale of the show went up, there was a lot more crew around. Like I had my own keyboard tech all of a sudden, and we had a tour manager and an assistant tour manager, and we had multiple tour buses and trucks, and we had a table tennis table, and like nothing ridiculous, but I mean, back in Melbourne, I'm an independent electronic musician. Like none of my other friends are touring in that kind of way at all. Like I just basically can't comment on the pitfalls of independent touring because I've never done it. I sort of somehow miraculously we all slipped into some sort of understated version of touring as Coldplay or something. Sort of a little mini indie version of that, which was surreal in its own way.
But less morose and depressed.
Yeah, and I think
than Coldplay.
Probably, yeah. I think, and the thing that we often would talk about was the fact that because we were, I guess maybe because of the success, I think doors were probably open to us to enjoy the excesses of rock and roll if we wanted to. Like I think that was probably all open to us. But the fact that we were all mid-30s music nerds, stable home lives, meant that I don't know if it is maturity or perspective or whatever. Like we played table tennis. We would finish a gig and go on the tour bus and play PlayStation, and then we'd all go into bed. It's like we'd have a scotch and then go to bed. So and maybe that says more about our personalities, but yeah, I do wonder about like especially if you reach that level of success at 21 or 19 or something, it's probably quite a different experience because maybe you don't have that maturity to deal with what's going on. I'm not sure.
This is these visions of Gautier just going, Daniela, this table tennis ball has a crack in it. You're fired. It's a terrible impersonation of him.
No, it's spot on, yeah.
I want to talk about mid-career.
It's uncanny, yeah.
He was very tired. He was very tired in that impersonation. I want to talk about being a mid-level limbo, which I feel like I'm possibly entering. In Australia, it sort of works like this. You have your first 5 years are kind of free from the media's perspective. You're young, you're hot, you're fresh, we're youth obsessed. I think MX magazine have a policy where they won't feature women over 30. That's actually true. And so you have your exciting 5-10 years, and then it's like 3 albums down. Yeah, the media and the business are selling papers, and this new band's come along, and we've heard of you a lot, and so we're going to move on to this lot. And if you can just sort of hang around for 30 to 40 years and get into the sort of cool heritage, Paul Kelly sort of era, then you'll be cool again. But meanwhile, there's this sort of middle years. Russell, I was wondering if you could, talk us through that.
Yeah, the middle years, it depends on how you handle it with your ego. I was pretty fine with it. I thought consciously, well, I've had my place in the sun. I'm really delighted about I've been lucky to have done what I've done. And I was all they sort of push you into the RSLs, and you tend to do a whole lot of the RSL clubs, and so people then view you differently. Radio people don't really talk to you anymore. You can't get anyone on the phone. It's so you become like like an embarrassing cousin that they sort of try to put away somewhere. You once were the poppy, now you're the weed, and they're trying to... So, and I understand because it's a small industry here, so they're trying to re-plough the earth and keep it healthy all the time. But they don't nourish heritage artists in this country like they do overseas. So I didn't care about it, and I was just happy at least to be able to sing a couple of nights a week and work with some friends. I would work with Brian Cadd and do duos. I'd work with Daryl Cotton and Jim Keys and do trios, and I'd do stuff by myself. And if you don't let it get to you, it's fine, because you just have to feel within yourself that you believe in yourself and you're happy with what your lot in life. The only thing you do notice sometimes is attitudes of media towards you.
How important is it to stave off bitterness at that point?
Oh, I've never been bitter, no. I've met people in the music business that are really bitter that they haven't made it, and I think you're poisoning yourself if you're bitter. You're eating a gourd that is really damaging to your own psyche. So you can't be bitter, that's life. We're molecules flying through the universe around the Milky Way at 700,000 kilometres an hour. That's what and the Earth travels it. So we're just molecules. You can't get bitter. We're part of the universe.
But how do you maintain like that sort of universal perspective on a day-to-day basis? Like I feel like I wake up and I'm plagued by insecurities and you have difficulties with those, and they sometimes evolve into bitterness, and then you have to deal with it and you have to grapple with the bitterness, and you have to go, then you think about it and you go, well, that's not really necessary, it's not good for you, and you figure it out. But I don't know, I feel like for me it's always there, possible. It's always possible. It's just you find a way to sort of skate around it. I think you've got to accept your destiny, like not sounding like an old hippie from the... We're children of the universe, and our atoms and our molecules are almost programmed to go the way we're going to go. So I don't think you can fight it. Just do it and try to accept and try not to get bitter. Some people, everyone can see someone who's better off than them and doing much better than they are. Don't look at them. Just concentrate on where you're being. Maybe I just need a phone call with you every day.
There's something about...
Evelyn, this man is your father.
Coach me through it.
But there's something about running your own race that's quite important. And I mean, I often, when I feel shitty about where I am at or what I'm doing or who didn't ring me back or whatever, I think less about the cosmos, although I should. But, there's so many bands and artists who had crazy success and then epic, falls. People remember Gabriella Chilmi? She won 15 million arias one year, and I don't know what she's doing now, and I'm sure she's making music somewhere, doing awesome things, but, that's how she, and so who knows, even if you do get what you want, you might not have it for very long. You might have to shuffle along for the next person. So, and, so it's sort of, I feel like it's really important to get a healthy relationship with your work and to appreciate why you do what you do. And it's certainly not about fame or success. It's about, as Justin said at the beginning, healing some rift inside you. And I guess you have to keep coming back to that, because if you start to pin your ideas of happiness onto, things or I think it can be extremely dangerous.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that there's two sides, though, to that coin, is that you've got that, but then you also exist within an industry. The industry is still around you. And then you come to BIGSOUND, and it's the most depressing experience of your life. Because you're
Why
just
is it depressing?
Because for me, I'm not at a point where anyone's that interested in, anything I'm doing. Meetings that I have, it's not a successful thing for me right now. It's actually a point where I'm kind of oh look, I've done a bunch of music, and people are kind of yeah, cool. I've been shuffled on a little bit. So it's I think there are different stages that you go through, and I think it's important to be honest about that, because everybody goes through it. It's not you do come to a point where you feel okay about it, but you also go, I don't know, that's just me. like I've struggled a lot with all of that.
Do you want to start medium sound with me? And it's just, the logo is, the logo is a ladder with a person at the top, and there's just no more ladder there.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All jokes aside, I must point out the terrifying countdown screen.
Please
that
finish now.
Judith Wright had. It's a
Exterminate,
red background,
exterminate.
black writing, counting down 57, 56, 55. As Megan was talking about, you know, you've just got to focus on your art and your career. Now we're overtime. Please finish now is flashing. That's great. Just Molly Meldrum's pixelated head's going to come on and tell us all to fuck off. Sorry, Molly, for God's sake. Look, we have reached the end of something pretty special. We've reached the end of something. Apologies to everyone who thought they were at the How to Use Twitter workshop. This has been a little bit more heavy for you on your hungover day. Please thank our panellists, Tim Shiel, Evelyn Morris, Megan Washington, and Russell Morris. Thank you so much for your honesty and your candour. Being an artist, we're inside our own craft, and the craft is also us. So we're kind of like an exoskeleton. We're simultaneously praising and criticising the craft while also inside it. This paradox creates an emotional fusion that also powers the craft while simultaneously destabilising it. Confused? So are we. Meanwhile, the importance of art in culture is so hard to articulate. It's the glue that essentially holds all life together, but it's a complicated, invisible glue. So artists tend to get stuck in the glue and eaten by these spiders of sport and capitalism. I've been Justin Heazlewood. You can purchase my book, Funemployed, out front. And I'd like to leave you with this little visual presentation. Oh no, I'm the guy with the PowerPoint. I'm the guy with the PowerPoint that doesn't work. I didn't want to be that guy. I don't know what I'm doing with my life, or maybe I do have a rough idea, or at least I used to, yeah, but now it's gone away. They say you shouldn't worry too much or overthink things, oops, too late, I just did. I don't know what I'm doing with my life, I'm just trying to be the best person I can be and create some art that people like and maybe change them a little bit and improve the world in a small way. Can you really do that with a rambling folk song? Please fill out my questionnaire. I don't know what I'm doing with my life, not that anyone else does either really. We're all struggling in our own way. Looks can be deceiving, remembering this fact creates empathy. We're all in this together. Having said that, can I borrow money? I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Oh, for God's sake, snap out of it, Justin, you're doing fine. Who said that? It's me, I mean you, I'm your conscience. Well, I appreciate the gesture, but I don't need hearing voices thrown into the mix. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Obviously I've made it this far and I have something of a name for myself, and I know that I'm talented and this is what I want to do, but at this point I'm so far in debt I don't need a record company. Seriously, can I borrow money? I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know what I'm doing with this song. I hope I haven't ripped the chords off, it sounds kind of familiar. Maybe it's Pachelbel's canon. Hasn't that guy been dead for years? Is there a lawyer in the house? I do know what I'm doing with my life. Sorry, that was just a typo, Control Z. I really don't know. Like my nan said, you've chosen a very hard path in life. There's always someone worse off than you, and that person is me in 10 years. my life, but obviously the fact I've said all this shows that it is something that I really care about. Confusion gets a bad rap, but it just means you're considering all the options, and surely that comes from a place of love for yourself. Please thank our panelists again. All right. Rad times, go and have a career in the music industry.